Good evening and welcome to the Paranormal Lens podcast. My name is Chad Thomas. I'm here with Kirstin Truccano and Jamie Widener. And we're the Paranormal Lens podcast presented by Jott-Nyx Paranormal. How are you guys doing this week?
It's been a week.
Oh no. Wait, what happened?
I told you guys. I hurt my knee more. Not really more. It's still from the injury like 2 weeks ago. It'll be fine. It'll be good. Everything's fine.
You have an extra knee. You don't need that one. You'll be
This
fine.
is fine. Listen, it doesn't hurt while I'm riding my horse. That's all that matters.
Okay. But doing like everything else?
Mainly just sitting down, going downstairs, walking for a while.
So everything else. Okay.
Everything else.
Cool. But the horse thing's good though. Okay.
The horse thing is fine.
Well, good.
Hashtag priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
All right. I get
Listen,
it.
I gotta make sure I can get Cassie out there to see her horse.
That's important. Yep.
Yeah.
And Jamie, we had a week this week. We moved a kid to Penn State again. And then I made a second trip up to State College on Saturday. So that was fun.
Well, Chad, I'm going to tell you something. I was smart enough to order the things that she had missed. So I didn't have to do the second trip. They arrived yesterday.
The prescription came here instead of State College where Zoe requested it went. And
gotcha. Yeah, it makes sense.
I didn't have a choice. So
yeah. Year two was a lot smoother for moving in as far as process and everything. We knew what we didn't know the first time. And it's funny because I have like a flat cart that folds up and everything, and I used it for a few other things around the way, but it works perfectly with like big storage totes. You can stack them. It's they sit perfectly on them. It's got a skid grip on it and all that. I was pushing it down the sidewalk, and it was raining, right? So we were kind of trying to hustle, and the lady who checked us into the parking lot that started our 30-minute clock, and there is this sense of urgency. She saw me with this, and she's like, "You might get the prize for the most organized move-inner." Like, you haven't seen anything yet. Well, that's two trips to unload the van, all the stuff out of the parking lot 16 minutes later. I think I earned a prize for that.
You should. Yep.
And then the walk of like 6 miles down to the parking lot, but
yeah, which like, my car was in that parking lot with stuff that didn't fit in the van.
I know. I'm well aware.
So anyway, that's everything's there. No more trips needed, so we're good. So
yeah, then we'll see her sometime in June. So cool.
So yeah.
And another one started high school, like senior year started. So 190 days for this, or 180 days for the school year. So 178 now days to go. Not that I'm counting. So we're good. It's all rolling.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. So, well, speaking of rolling, should we get rolling with tonight's episode?
Yes, we should.
I love how you do these segues for us, Jamie.
So. It works. It works so well.
So what you're saying, if I babble long enough, something makes sense to transition. Okay.
All right. Well, as normal, tonight's episode is going to be a little different from our norm. We aren't going to talk about a location that might have paranormal activity, and we aren't going to be looking at processes to communicate with spirits that may be here with us. Instead, we're going to turn the paranormal lens inward. And to help us do that, I'd like to introduce you to Desert Star. Now, I grew up knowing Desert Star as Leslie Corbin. We went to the same high school, and she graduated about 3 years before I did. But tonight, we're not here to reminisce about high school. We're here because Leslie took me somewhere I've never really gone before. She guided me through a past life regression. And before anybody asks, no, I didn't suddenly start speaking Latin. I didn't levitate off my chair or discover that I was Cleopatra. I know you're disappointed, Jamie. At least not that I remember. What I did experience was something that raised a whole lot of questions for me. And that's really what we're going to explore tonight. Leslie has a background that makes her uniquely suited to this kind of work. Her ancestry includes Chickasaw and Gaelic heritage, and her mother, known as Desert Rose, was raised on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation in Lame Deer, Montana. That connection to ancestry, the earth, and ancestral
Oh, yeah, we're losing your audio.
Nope.
Nope.
There you
Yes.
go.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Don't move.
All right.
Don't touch anything.
All right. Here we go again. That connection to ancestry, the earth, and ancestral reverence became an important part of Leslie's own spiritual journey. Today, she is a Unity in Earth priestess, as well as an eco spiritual mentor, trauma informed facilitator, writer, and guide. Her work is about helping people reconnect with nature, ancestry, themselves, and what she describes as a deeper connection with the earth. And tonight, we're going to take that idea and apply it to something a little more personal, me. We're going to talk about what a past life regression actually is, how Leslie approaches it, what happened when she guided me through one, and probably most importantly, what do we make of the experience afterwards? Was I actually accessing memories from another lifetime? Was my brain creating a story from things I already knew? Was it imagination? Was it something spiritual? Or is the truth somewhere in between? I don't know the process. I don't know the answers. And I'm not going to sit here tonight and tell you that I have all the answers. But that's one thing I love about doing the Paranormal Lens. We're not always looking for the easy answer. Sometimes we're just willing to shine the light on something and ask some uncomfortable questions and see where it takes us. So tonight we're going to take a look at my experience through a past life regression with someone who knows this work from both a spiritual and a personal perspective. Leslie, it's really good to see you again, and welcome to the Paranormal Lens.
Thank you.
And before we start, let's dive a little bit into Desert Star, which is the name that you go by. Can you tell us where you got that, or?
Oh, I'd love to. And it's something that I am working on embodying what my mother foresaw when she gave me that name. In the Northern Cheyenne tradition, the parents give a tribal name to their children. And my grandmother gave my mother the name of Desert Rose. And my sister and I, had been wondering when my mom was going to confer a name on us. And I finally pushed her. I said, "It's now or never, Mom." And we gave her a good week to think about it. And I will tell you, the reason that she never wanted to do that was because growing up on the res when she did was incredibly traumatic. A lot of poverty and a lot of violence on the res. So there was a time period where my mom did pretty much everything she could to kind of cut that tie. But we pushed her back against the wall and said, we want a tribal name. And my mom came up with Desert Radiant Star for me and Desert Eve for my sister. And we're both trying to embody those names, at least what we think my mom intended for that.
Very cool. So, all right. Well, thank you for that. Let's dig a little bit into the past life regression. Before we get started of what happened with my session, what exactly is QHHT, which is the type of regression that we did, and what happens? Can you explain a little bit how we get there, things along that nature?
Sure. QHHT is the acronym for Quantum Healing and Hypnosis Technique, which is a specific modality that was founded and developed by Dolores Cannon. She's the OG past life regressionist, and she's written tons and tons of books on the various experiences that she has witnessed by regressing others. And so I learned actually from her daughter. Dolores had passed, her daughter picked up the torch. And essentially, this technique, as we were taught, is one that builds a very close rapport with the client and then leads through 3 days in the life of that specific lifetime. And then we do a discussion with your higher self soul on anything that seems to have come up during the regression and or any healing or questions you may have that you want to be focused, your higher self focused on as the last portion of the regression.
Okay. I have a summary of the session that I'll read here in a second. But before I do that, as you know, and as a lot of our guests or visitors may know, I don't visualize the way most people visualize because of something called aphantasia. I tend to experience things through feelings, memories, concepts, and impressions. Now, you knew that before we started. Were you concerned that it would affect the session at all?
It's a really good question. And the most important thing with people who have aphantasia or other sorts of sensory differences is to understand how they need to be approached. And so one of the things you remember, Chad, is our having a discussion. If I say the term, can you see something? I wanted you to use that term, see, in whatever way that made sense to you. So if you couldn't visualize, don't get hung up on the term see. Use it in a way that tells you imaginatively, however you come up with imagery.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that as long as we had that basis and that foundation of understanding between us and not to get hung up on specific terms, that you would have no problem at all.
Right. Okay.
And you didn't.
That's right. And from that, I'm going to go into a little bit about the session. I'll summarize it here, and if I miss
Uh, uh,
Jamie, what's that?
you went muffled.
I did, or Jamie did? I didn't hear.
Well,
Jamie.
now Jamie's muted, so
Okay, is that better?
you're better now. Jamie, can we hear you?
No.
Okay.
I was trying to say you're muted or muffled. I'm muted.
All right. Well, I'll try this again. So, on July 18th, 2026, I underwent a QHHT session with Desert Star in Milton, Delaware. During the regression, I initially found myself in a strange state where I didn't feel like I had a physical body. I was floating as energy with darkness above me and white light below me. At first, I resisted the light because I didn't know what would happen if I allowed it to surround me. Eventually, I decided to trust it, and as the light enveloped me, I experienced it as something peaceful, pure, and good. Then I began experiencing a very strong vibration. It was strange, but not painful. I actually physically shook during parts of the session. At the same time, I felt like something was anchoring my right leg, not allowing me to leave where I was. We eventually worked through that, and from there, the experience shifted into what felt like a past life connected to the Black Forest in Germany. The name Heinrich came to me. I experienced Heinrich as a solitary clockmaker living in a cottage in the forest. He was fascinated by gears, mechanics, and the intricate details of clockmaking. He became very successful, possibly even famous, but he lived a very isolated life. The reason for the isolation seemed to go back to a tragedy. While Heinrich was away from his village as a young man, a fire destroyed his family's home. His parents and other family members died in the fire. Heinrich believed that if he had been home, he could have somehow prevented it. He carried that guilt for the rest of his life. He eventually left the village and lived alone in the forest. His clocks gave him purpose, but something was missing. He never shared his knowledge with an apprentice, even though that was something that could have brought him fulfillment. When Heinrich died, it was peaceful. He was simply old, tired, and ready to go. After that, the session shifted back to me and what all of this might mean for my life now. The biggest message was about grief, isolation, and holding myself back. I was told that I need to recognize the past, learn from it, and then allow it to remain in the past rather than letting it control me. Another message was about connection. I've always been someone who can be comfortable on my own, but the session suggested that I need to become more open to other people and to the spiritual experiences around me. We also talked about an experience I've had where I seem to receive information while investigating a location. The message I received was that I may have the ability to connect with the energy or imprint of a location, but I need to learn how to recognize when that connection is available. There was also a strong message about healing. The session suggested that I may have an ability connected to healing that I haven't fully trusted or explored. And perhaps the strongest message of the entire experience was very simple: stop holding yourself back. Make time for this, pay attention to the signs, trust the thoughts and impressions that come through, be willing to connect with others. Now, whether what I experienced was a past life, my subconscious, my higher self, or something else entirely, I can't be certain, but the experience gave me a whole lot to think about. And for me, the message that stands out most is honor the past, learn from it, let go of what no longer serves you, and be willing to move forward. So, Desert Star, is that a good summary of what we covered?
I would say that's an excellent summary. I have forgotten about the name Heinrich, and I remember now that we had talked about that name having come to you, and we did just a quick Google search to see what we would find for someone's name Heinrich, and in some way related to clockmaking, and there were all kinds of allegories and such.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really interested to see what you would find after the fact as far as doing some historical searching, but I was very satisfied with some of the threads that connected that past life to the life you have now.
Okay. When I describe myself as a bodiless energy floating between darkness and light, how common are experiences like that?
Ooh, good question. I would say it's contextual. About 25% ish of the sessions I facilitated, there are folks who feel as if they're floating in a void, a nowhere space. It's more of an energetic presence that they experience. And often they are in between lives, either having just passed and their soul is kind of in a holding pattern, waiting room, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
or they're a little bit further along and they're about to be reincarnated into the next physical form, whatever that may take. That is where I thought you were going to go. So when I was working with you to determine where exactly you were, we focused a lot on the feelings that you were having in that specific period of time, because that often is an indicator as to whether you're in between lives or in another dimension or even another planetary system.
Okay.
But as you described it, being more of an energetic type of limbo place where you were trying to meet the vibration of the past life that you needed to experience, it became clear that that was more your direction as opposed to being in between lives.
Okay. And speaking of the vibration, let's talk about that a little bit, because I think it surprised me, and you thought it was something else. I remember being in the meditative state, or however you want to describe it, and literally shaking. And Jamie asked me a question after reading through things: did we videotape the session? And we didn't. I almost wish we had, because I felt like I was definitely shaking, and I think really what it turned out to be is I was trying to match a vibration of like you said, the life that I was going to, and I needed to be on the same vibrational plane. So it was interesting that I was actually physically shaking, except for my right leg, which
Right.
felt anchored,
Right.
and it literally felt like there was something, not like a hand holding me, but something anchoring me back to a place. And what did you think as you were experiencing this with me?
Yeah, there's a lot of times that the client will have anywhere from very subtle to very profound inner body temperature changes. And if you think about being in a meditative state or almost falling asleep, things calm down. Your circulatory system starts to rest, your respiration begins to rest. And so it's very common for someone who might have felt completely warm and comfortable in the beginning of the session to experience coolness or even, feeling uncomfortably cold and shivering somewhat further into the regression. And that is what I thought was happening to you. The shaking that I saw was somewhat extreme for shivering. So when you explained that you were not actually cold, that it was more of an energetic rush that you were experiencing, that made sense to me. But you wouldn't have been the first person who started out totally fine and then ended up needing a blanket halfway through.
Right. So one thing I forgot to mention, and wanted to start off with, is actually before we started the session, you took some notes on energies that you saw, and you
Mhm.
wrote them down, but you didn't share them with me at the time.
Right.
We talked about them afterwards. Do you have those, or I have them written down? Do you have those with you?
I do.
Do you want to share what you saw?
Sure, I pulled out my notes. So typically with QHHT, because the modality is very focused on rapport between the client and facilitator, we have a lot of time in which we get to know each other. And during that time, a lot of intuitive insight will come to me. So, to your point, I'll jot them down, but I don't want to influence the regression or influence anyone's thought process. So, I wait until after the regression to go over some of the things that I had felt or seen energetically around you.
Hmm.
And so, the very first thing that I wrote down was dragon energy. And I felt that it was medieval-ish, um, but it somewhat surprised me because while I do have clients that have more fantasy-like or sci-fi-like regressions, that wasn't the feeling I was getting from what I thought would happen with you. So the term dragon kind of threw me off a bit. I also had written down small village, stone abode, very medieval, very old style of cottage almost. And I had seen it in more of a one room, yeah, essentially a one room cottage kind of in the wooded area of, I couldn't tell whether it was a mountainous region or if it just happened to be just a wooded area in a medieval time period, but it definitely had a feeling of solitude.
Hmm. And the research that I did, on like the beginning of the cuckoo clock, which is what I was really working with, points to like the mid 1600s to early 1700s. So in that time frame would sort of be fitting with what you were thinking, um, or feeling. So I found that pretty interesting. So
Yeah, and I thought what your research showed about which I'm sure we'll talk about, which your research showed about dragon energy and or the belief system of people in the medieval time period in not understanding how things combust or why things are flammable, would be, a plausible explanation for them to explain away a tragedy that occurred through fire or
Right.
some type of an explosion.
Right. Because what I sensed when I was in the regression, and I didn't dive into it real deep in my summary, was that it was an explosion type accident my family were bakers, so they would have been dealing with flour, which is very combustible when it gets in the air. So that was what caused the fire that destroyed the house and the family. So the dragon type energy, the fire could have been some way that they described it, because even though Christianity had come into that area in the 1700s, they were still had the beliefs of the dragons and things along those lines.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah, it started to make sense after you had done some research, because I really was thinking, why a dragon? Usually I'll see
right.
very specific things relatable, and that one had thrown me.
So Jamie, you have that inquisitive look on your face. Do you have any questions yet, or?
I had to find the unmute button first. I have several. I'm going to wait. So I've got a list. So I'm starting a list here. So I'll wait. All good. I do want to, if we have a moment to pause, there are some comments to catch up on if I can. Going back to the very beginning, Stefan has joined us as hello, everyone. Bert has joined us as saying hello as well. Heather has joined us and saying hi. Looking forward to the show tonight. Mom and Kaya are watching here on YouTube. So it's date night. So
Date
all right.
night.
Good stuff. Back when you were muffled, this intern Alex joined in and said, "That's how I normally hear him talk." Like one of your favorite children, right there.
It's so
not your
good.
Favorite, but one of your
favorite.
favorite. Yeah, it's about time he did something right. Stefan has given us a link, and I'm not sure where this goes, so I'm going to hold off on that. And let's see, Todd Cocatalo has joined us. Said hi. Sorry for being MIA. Hope you all are doing great, and we are. Thanks for joining us, Todd. It's good to see you again. And of course, as usual, there's conversation between our guests or folks. And he says hi to Bert and Heather, and Bert gave the ever friendly wave back. So, yay! All right, and we're good.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So, jumping back in, let's talk about Heinrich a little bit. And what made you believe we were experiencing something real? Like, how did I relay to you about Heinrich?
I thought, especially for someone who has a sensory distortion, if you will, like aphantasia, your description of your home, of the way in which you made clocks, the people that would rarely, but would come to visit you, I thought was so detailed that I had to remind myself that you weren't seeing that visually like many of us would be able to imagine in our minds, that information was coming to you in some other method. But not only that, I thought you did a really good job of describing the way Heinrich felt during the regression. Because a lot of times people see the regression as if they're looking at a movie, but you actually felt it. And Dolores Cannon calls this somnambulism. Some other regressionists use somnambulism in a different way, but she uses somnambulism to mean that you're actually in first person, describing what you're experiencing, or you're in character. And so you became Heinrich. And when I was asking you questions about your boat and did you have any friendships or did you have any partners in that lifetime, you answered very clearly from, a first person standpoint.
Mm-hmm. And it was, I definitely felt that that's who it was. I felt like I had a pet companion, which once I came out of the regression, this is something that was interesting. Things kept coming after the regression. It was like once I was back to normal, we'll use that term. Like I remember standing up to walk to the bathroom, I think, and I looked at you and I said, it was a dog. Because I had said I had an animal companion, but it was at that moment that was like, it was a dog and there was a cat there, but it wasn't like, it was there because of mice and things like that. The dog was my companion. And it was just really cool how things kept growing after the session. The more you remember, and things just kept, the color kept getting filled in, I guess is a good way of putting it.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. And that's one of the reasons, Chad, why I offer as part of this, not just the regression, but 90 days of what we call aftercare, but primarily to kind of flesh through those types of details that would pop back up later and integrate the experience with the new information coming in.
Okay. I'm going to throw this comment up because it's actually a good question. Well, it's more of a statement, but looking at it as a question, could you immediately pick up that I feel deeply?
Hold on, let's read this aloud for those who aren't watching, for the audio participants. So Heather has asked the question, or made the comment, I'm sorry. When you meet Chad, you can almost immediately pick up that he can feel deeply, almost to a fault.
So what's your interpretation of that?
Mine?
Yeah, sorry.
There are people that you meet in your life who say exactly what they mean and mean exactly what they say. And they're completely authentic. And I would say, even knowing you when we were children, I would say that that was the case in knowing you even however long ago, 30, 40 years ago, that was. And I was really pleased to find that that hadn't changed, that you still had the authentic heart that you had even as a child, and that you were still a sensitive soul.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So many questions to go through, but
well, speaking of which, let me jump up to one of them from Bert, and just going back to the Heinrich recollection. But so Heinrich came to you something like a memory?
Yes, not like a memory, because it was like I was actually experiencing it. So it was more like a thought more than a memory, I think would be a better way of putting it. Because I felt like I was there. I wasn't thinking back on the past. I was experiencing it at the time. And I think that's the whole point of the regression, is that you're experiencing it as it's happening. It's just really hard to explain it, because it wasn't a memory and I wasn't seeing it, but it was like it was a thought. It's something that came to me. So.
Thank you. Heather replied to that, says thank you. You said it better than me, sensitive soul, with a smiley face.
So I appreciate that. So I hope I answered Bert's question there. It wasn't really a memory, but it was more like an experience a thought that I was having at the time. I found it interesting when we were talking about learning the clockmaking trade that I didn't have a teacher in the normal sense of a teacher. It was more of a spiritual teacher, more of a knowledge that just came to me. It just, I knew how to do things, and I knew how to make the clock. I knew how to make it fit, make it work. And I sort of have that now with different things. Software, I will sit down to a piece of software I've never seen, and be able to use it without reading the instructions or the manual. So I think that's an interesting connection between the 2 points. Different types of things, but even in the woodworking that I've done in this life, there's things that people are like, "How did you come up with that?" I'm like, "I don't know. I just did it. I just know it," which is interesting, and that's where it's that intuition that's really hard to trust in certain ways. But when you're doing a craft or a trade like that, it just comes through, and it's like, oh, that's just part of what I do.
It's that imaginative flow that if we would allow ourselves to appreciate and sink into, I think we would build more trust in our own abilities.
I think that's a really good way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so, and we didn't really dig into this, but I'm going to put Jamie on the spot. Jamie says that he is an unsensitive person, not insensitive, unsensitive.
True story.
But I think if he could embrace what you just said, some of that might start coming through. So, think about that, Jamie.
Sure.
You gotta try, Jamie. You gotta try.
So moving through the different parts of the regression, how easily did I flow through the different segments of life?
Yeah. As I mentioned, since QHHT, the intent is to give as much information to the client or the individual being regressed as possible. So we go through 3 days in a life of that lifetime. And so the first part is dropping into wherever it is that you land. The other one is to move to another time or another day, and sometimes it's just a couple of hours. And some people actually go backwards if we look at time not as a construct, but as a linear function. When something is really important for you to know happening, so there's an event or some sort of information that would come up out of that next day. And then the third day is typically the day of your passing. So we don't go through the throes of death or the whole death scene type of thing, but we get into your mindset on how you felt, who was around you. Did you have any last profound thoughts as you were about to pass, maybe regrets, those types of things. And I was really pleased with how quickly you were able to change gears, clockmaking and not clockmaking as far as gear changing goes.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people have to kind of shift into a different space in order to mentally travel from one day to the next, but you did it like that. And so I think once you hit that vibration of that lifetime that you were intended to see, you were just in the flow.
Okay. I think that sort of ties into a question that Todd had here.
Yeah, that's a good one.
How difficult is it to have a past life regression experience? I'll address it as it was not difficult at all. I was very concerned going into it because of the way I experience things. I don't see visions. I don't see in my mind's eye. So I was very nervous about it, and it's something we had talked about beforehand. And I just think the whole format that has been developed makes it very easy for almost anybody to go into the regressed session. Do you want to expand upon that a little bit? Because you've done this a couple times.
Yeah, a couple of times. Yeah, it is a good question. And I haven't met one person who didn't have some concerns. Most people are concerned about not being able to regress in a way that gives them anything substantive. Every once in a while, you'll get, and I can think of two people out of all of the hundreds of regressions I've done, but two people in particular come to mind on worrying that they would be in too deep of a trance. But that is rare.
Hmm.
In fact, sometimes people are so deep in trance that I can't hear what they're saying. And it becomes unintelligible, almost like if you walk in on someone who's talking in their sleep or they're having a dream and they're just making noise, but you can't understand what they're saying.
Or like Chad's audio earlier.
Yeah.
Or like Chad's audio. Um, so so most people are very nervous about it, and I think you said it well, Chad. The way that the process has been developed really is set up to give the client as much comfort as possible so that by the time the regression is about to begin, that you're already in a comfortable headspace, that you're not worried. It's just like getting together before you go live on a podcast. You know, you talk with each other a few minutes to kind of get in the flow, and then by the time that you hit, you know, lights, camera, action, then you're ready to roll.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have not had anyone that could not regress. I've had people that regressed and never came out of in between lives, or they found themselves floating around, or they found themselves somewhere intergalactically and weren't quite sure where they were. But I've never had anyone that couldn't regress.
Okay. I'm going to throw this up because it ties in somewhat on Todd's comment. Can you randomly regress on your own? Like when you're someplace you've never been, but it feels familiar, like you have lived there.
Can you, Chad?
Well, I would say yes.
It happened to you.
It did, but and I think that I had lived a life there as well. But I think that was also being able to interpret energy from other events there.
Yes.
Expanding on this a little bit, I don't know if anybody here is familiar with Colemanville, Lancaster County. In 1906, there was a dynamite factory in that area, and there was actually it was the dynamite factory was built several years beforehand. They were putting a low grade railroad in the area. The dynamite was used to blast through rock, all sorts of things along those lines. In 1906, there was a major explosion that wiped out the town, the factory, the surrounding area. It was seen in Lancaster City, which is a good 15, 20-minute drive away. A friend of mine took me down there several years ago, and she said, "Have you ever heard of Colemanville?" And I said, "Nope, never heard of it." She's like, I need to take you there." And I'm like, "Why?" And she said, "You'll know when you get there." And when she did, I was able to walk around. She led me to where the factory had been. I was able to walk around and find foundations. We found hinges. We found metal relics that she had been there multiple times with multiple people and hadn't discovered any of these things. And I don't remember this experience at all. I only remember it from her telling me afterwards. So I think I somehow was put myself into a trance from the energy that was there. So to get back to your question, yes, I think you can.
Yes, and some people are meditating or just taking time, you know, to sit quietly, cultivate some stillness, and have found that they've gone deeper than they anticipated and had past life experiences. And some folks have even experienced what they believe to be a past life, usually in recurring dreams.
Huh.
If you have a real affinity towards a specific culture, a language, art, history, really look at that and think about where that affinity comes from, because there has been some connection between people who have, for instance, real interest in Egyptian pyramids, as an example. And when they have done regressions, they have found that they had experienced a past life in Egypt, although they had never been there in this 3D life. And so I think those things are really telltales for us, kind of hints for us to follow up on.
Mm-hmm. There's also been some studies about afflictions that you have in this lifetime that may be tied to something that happened to you in a previous lifetime. One may be like you have a leg problem, and it may be that in a previous life you've lost that leg. I know, like, people with headaches or things, um, like constant headaches, will do a regression and find out that they may have been they may have passed because of a blow to the head, things like that. So it's interesting how some of the things that we can just tie to previous lives.
Yeah, the most, I think, stunning regression I did with regard to that was someone who was unable, it wasn't a full blown on panic phobia, but it was a definite discomfort in wearing anything around her neck. She couldn't wear scarves. If she did, she wore them and then, you know, couldn't take it off fast enough. She had a hard time wearing necklaces, chokers, those types of things around her neck. And she said she was tortured while growing up. Her mom kept putting her in turtlenecks, and she just felt like she was suffocating all of all of the time whenever she had these things around her. And so during the regression, she had several experiences. One, she had been hanged. And in another life, there's a little bit of leapfrogging that can happen with some people. And in another life, she died from suffocation due to smoke inhalation.
Oh.
So once she realized that those events, whether they're subconscious explanations or they actually happened, doesn't really matter. It gave her the comfort she needed to say, you know what? Now I'm aware of this. Now I can let this go. This
Mm-hmm.
isn't serving me anymore. There's an explanation for it, and it's time for me to lay down that anxiety. And she was able to do that.
Very interesting. I'm just trying to figure out how two explosions in past lives are tying to this one now. This Colemanville. I believe that I was one of the workers at Colemanville who was there that tragic day. And looking at a picture, I've actually felt like I've connected to one of the men there. So it's always something interesting to think about. Todd had a question here. How long is a regression session?
So you can do a couple of different types of modalities. Some folks don't want to have the full QHHT experience. That is on average between 3.5 to 4 hours. 1.5 to 2 hours of that is simply in going through that life's regression. And then there's another portion where we talk to the higher self. I've yet to find anybody's higher self that wasn't short of brilliant. Not kidding. Just absolutely amazing things come out of people's minds and mouths during that portion. For that question, a QHHT session, I have never had one that was any shorter than 3 hours. Some folks are there much longer. I did have one QHHT sesh that was about 7 hours long because it took that much discussion prior to the regression. Once you're in regression in that trance state, we can't leave you there very, very long. So we have a specific period of time, which is why we keep you moving, because you have to drive home and function after the regression unless you're spending the night. Now, that is another option for people who would like to have a QHHT session, but have issues with getting someplace. That sometimes the practitioner will actually come to your home where it's a little bit safer in that respect. But there are other regressions that don't have the full QHHT modality process, where we don't go quite as deep, but we can see 3 lives, usually in the span of an hour. And there are other different modalities that's about an hour to 2 hours, where you use a clearing type of visualization if you're able to visualize or contextualize a specific event, and oftentimes will regress and people end up in a past life as they're trying to clear an uncomfortable blockage. And that's about an hour and a half.
Yeah. And we even as short as a half hour. I know we were part of a group, and you did a presentation in the group. It was an online presentation where you were actually had the group regress, and I think it was about 20 to 30 minutes, if I remember correctly. And I experienced things in that I recalled. So that was really interesting. Couple questions here. Jamie, you want to bring up any of your questions? You're muted.
Jamie.
You're muted.
You gotta mute. Unmute. Hit the unmute button. There you go.
Oh, the other way.
You know, it's a habit to mute during calls. You know, like that's what we do because we've been doing Zoom and everything else for like all these years since COVID. So habit, but bad habit too. I have a couple, but I think Bert's asking one of them for me. So I'm going to show this this question. So, have you ever had a session that the person transgressed into an individual who scared you, or if you've had some kind of an uncomfortable issue?
Yes, really good question. That has happened to me. For a little bit different reason, Bert, than you may intend, but then I can speak to what I think you're probably getting at as well. But one of the things that scared me was I had an individual who believed he was an avid World War II fan. And I mean, how are you a fan of World War II? It's more like the relics, right? And the weaponry. So let me make that clear. He's not like a huge war fan. But he was just very, very interested. Anything from American foot soldier uniforms to what they ate, the whole 9 yards. When he was being regressed, he refused to leave the battlefield. And one of the things that we're able to do is move you away from painful experiences. So you can witness it from happening, but you don't have to relive being shot. You don't have to relive having your leg amputated. You don't have to relive those types of things. That's called having a nightmare, right? And so what kind of practitioner would I be to allow someone to suffer mentally through that? But this individual did not want to leave the battlefield and stayed there while he was dying. And he was thrashing, and anything you can imagine, the throes of death in war is what I was witnessing in front of me. That scared me. But that scared me for his health and his refusal to leave. He felt like he had to see this through. He had survivor's guilt, and he felt like he had to see this through. But there are other individuals who especially come from cultures that have different belief systems in things like demons or evil entities. And if you have someone who has that belief system, then the opportunity for them to run in to that type of energy is always possible. And so what Dolores Cannon would do when people would be in those types of situations is she essentially played the firm grandmother, and she says, no, we're not having that. We're going to have a real regression, and you're going to jump out of this mode right now, young man. And you're going to tell, goodbye, demon. Now let's get back to the real work. And so she just kind of cut it like a firm, stern German grandma who was like, we don't have time for this type of thing. Those experiences can be very scary.
There's another question from Heather, and this is from Kaya, her daughter. Kaya wants to know if you ever had someone not have a past life, like a new soul.
That's a really good question too. I have never regressed someone who was new on their journey to incarnating either on this earth or a different planet. What I have had are people who are not human. And that is an interesting experience, because if we think just in terms of, Jamie, you're regressing and you tell me it's dark. And I say to you, when you say it's dark, are your eyes open? I don't have eyes. Okay, now we have to start exploring, because are you in a dark cave? Are you under the ground? Are you a human or an animal that has eyes? How do you visually, sense things? And so it becomes a real investigative process to kind of figure out what you are and why you're seeing dark. Or maybe you're just in a room and somebody flicked the light switch off, right? And so I have had people who were rocks, who were toads, who were trees, because this isn't about our past life as a human. It's about consciousness and however our consciousness takes form in a way that we have something to learn that's important to us to take back with us.
Can that speak a little bit to, and I believe it's in the Buddhist faith, where the quality of your life will equate to the leveling of your next life. If you had a good life, you'll elevate. If you had you had poor life or made bad choices, whatnot, you'll digress. Is there something to that? Perhaps there's somebody would be something that's not what I would say like a normal human.
I have had people feel like that perhaps the way they either mistreated others in a past life could explain why they are now on the karmic end of receiving something that's not so pleasant. Every once in a while, you'll have someone who says, "Oh my gosh, I get it now." I have one man who he reminded me of Scrooge. He was like the archetypal, Ebenezer Scrooge, and he Pertner described himself almost to the T as that individual, and he realized that in this life, his kind of curmudgeonly, Scrooge-ish ways may have come back to bite him a little bit. That's really cool, because that's the point, right? That's the point, to say, oh my gosh, how do I break the karmic cycle? I break it by recognizing how I caused it, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, and having the willingness to make the change. That there's
absolutely
knowledge is one thing, but action is the other.
Yeah.
And I think that points to the whole, we're here on the earth to learn lessons and grow spiritually. And I think that sort of points to that. Not all lessons are good. You have to experience good and bad to grow. So I think it's really interesting that you have to have both ends of that.
Yeah. And then about 50% of the regressions, or maybe not quite 50%, but the folks aren't necessarily your friendly neighbor next door. There was one regression I had that, while it didn't scare me, they were pretty sure they had been a serial killer in a past life. So it did scare me, but it was on the edge.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. I have a question, and I'm not sure how they ask this, so I'm just going to say what I'm thinking. But and bear with me, I might be off point. But how does a past life regression relate to a out of body experience? We hear of these situations all the time, and someone's above themselves outside their physical sense, and usually it's at passing, maybe, but some traumatic event has happened perhaps, and then they are above or beyond themselves, seeing themselves outside. Is there any relation here or correlation?
I think the ability to switch focus from seeing out of your own eyes to viewing as a third party almost has some threads there. Not many people can switch the focus of their consciousness to being in the room, or expansive, if you will, looking at the individual sitting in the chair. That's more difficult than being able to switch your focus to an event or occurrence in a past life. But they can both happen simultaneously as well. And I've had people who have also had past lives, and they were their own ancestors. And that, you want to talk about karmic wheel reckoning, is an interesting one. But yeah, to your point, Jamie, that ability to switch your focus and consciousness to outside of the human body is something a talented few can do.
And I've actually had that experience once in my life as well, and I can't remember what the term for it is, where it's an out of body experience, but I'm drawing a blank on it. But it's a really weird experience to have happen, where you're sort of floating up and seeing other things. We talked about Dolores Cannon earlier. She dives into this a lot in some of her books, like The Convoluted Universe, where this is a way of travel for people and a way of learning, where you can go to other places and learn. It's something that it's a skill that I believe we as humans used to have, or not necessarily humans, but even possible aliens used to have the skill and would be able to travel that way and learn and gain knowledge, because you can travel a lot faster than you can physically. So
Yeah, for sure. It's switching the intention and the focus.
I have two questions left, and the one though, that going way back to where you started, you were mentioning that people have sensory differences, and in that, uh, if somebody doesn't know that they're not they're challenged in whatever way of their sensory, and you don't know that, they don't know that, does that challenge or compromise this process at all, or is it just simply elongate it to get to the place that you're normally would get to with someone who's sensory aware sooner?
Yeah. That's a really good question. That actually happened to me early in my practicing days. I had somebody who could not visualize, and I waited and waited and waited, after asking him a question, and I would say a good 20 minutes went by, and me prodding, saying, are you getting anything? And finally he said, I just can't do it. So once someone says that, then we switch the focus to a different sense. So what he couldn't do was visualize. We'll use Chad's apple. He couldn't visualize holding an apple. He couldn't turn it, look at it, see the stem, see the leaves. But what he could do is feel his dog in his lap and that sense of having warmth. And, maybe sensing that the little dog is panting, or imagine the puppy licking him on his arm. So that told me, okay, visualization, no go, but this guy has a lot of sentience ability in his body. And once we figured that out, we were off and running. In fact, he was also on a battlefield. He was dying, and he even told me, I hear nurses nearby, but they keep walking over me. And all of that was based on how he felt as he was laying on the ground and what he heard happening, or as the air passed when someone would pass them. He could feel the breeze against his cheek. None of that was done visually. So there have been, and Chad, I don't know if you've seen this in any or read any of this in Dolores's books, but she does speak about being able to regress someone who is blind. So they can have a regression and tell you what their cottage looks like, tell you what their puppy looked like, Are they telling you from a different sensory perspective? Probably. But maybe they weren't blind in a past life.
Yeah, that'd be definitely interesting to dig into.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Yeah.
Okay, my second question, and this is a professional opinion question for you. Okay, so considering that the regression session you had, you understand through the process that Chad was Heinrich in a past life. Mm-hmm. Does that mean we get to call him Heine now?
I thought this was established. You can choose the nickname.
Now it's in public, so the world needs to know. I'll take it. I'll take it as a yes. Okay, cool. It's going to happen either way.
All right. On that note, I'm going to bring up another question there, a statement that Bert had. I know I have drowned in a previous life and also fell to my death in another. I constantly have dreams about drowning.
A lot of people believe if they have those types of recurring dreams where they're experiencing it over and over, and even if you feel like you're witnessing it happening, but you're aware that that individual it's happening to is you, they often do find that when they regress. In fact, I had one individual who had a recurring dream where she was starving and was hanging out on an embankment somewhere near a body of water that flowed smaller than a river, a little bit larger than a stream. And she had this recurring dream from seeing her as first person. She could feel that she was starving. She had seen it from like a third person perspective, hunkering down by this embankment. She ended up during regression finding out that she and her brother were hiding. They had a southern home and their house was getting sacked during the Civil War. But that was something that she had experienced, I think, since childhood. And during the regression, it was like, okay, blown open. What exactly am I remembering here that was like a memory and then became an actual lifetime that she was able to experience? And the other interesting thing with that is she always had a problem with food and fearing starvation, and she would hoard food. And once she had these regressions and realized where this fear base came from, she was able to let that hoarding behavior go.
Wow,
very interesting. So,
just for the record, Heather has commented that we will get him the T-shirt. So, like I told you earlier, Chad, you don't get to pick your nickname. You do. So,
right.
Take care of that, Heather. We appreciate it.
So, well, thanks. I think. I have a few more things to go through. And I know we're over an hour, and I appreciate it. Do you have time to hang out for a little bit more, or are you good? Yep.
I wouldn't think of leaving.
Okay.
Notice he doesn't ask us. Like seriously,
No,
really.
no,
Chad.
you're here for it.
What?
Chad.
So, during this, with getting into the higher self part of it, because we haven't really dove into that at all. During the session, I was told that guidance is around me all the time and that I need to learn to recognize it. How do people distinguish guidance from their own thoughts?
Great question. If you're thinking of something, for instance, I really need to, I don't know, do the dishes. I got a pile up of dishes. Oh my gosh. And then that leads to another thought. Oh man, what am I going to have for dinner? Blah, blah, blah. And we all know how thoughts kind of branch off of each other. And it kind of takes sometimes linear, sometimes, other types of patterns. But you know that you originated the thought. That's how you know that that's something that came out of your brain. If you're thinking about doing the dishes and saying, maybe I'm just going to get paper plates from now on, and all of a sudden, grandma pops into your mind and she is showing you an image of a photo of her holding you as a child, then you know that had nothing to do with your thought process about washing dishes, that it kind of came in out of left field. And it also feels differently. You know that when you're ruminating on something, you guys know that feeling. It's like, oh, I should have done this, I shouldn't have done that. You have a to-do list or whatever it is you're ruminating on. There's a different energy in here than when something just comes to you out of the blue.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Okay. It feels fresh. It feels new. It's like, oh, hi, I hadn't thought about you in ages, right? So it's a whole different feeling on the inside as well when that information comes in.
Lots to think about there. Is the higher self something that you believe is an actual conscious aspect of us, or could it be another way of describing like a subconscious mind? Or is there something different that you see the higher self as?
I am not sure where this awareness center is. Every single one of us on this podcast right now can see ourselves right on the screen, but you know that you're witnessing yourself doing something. There's this level of awareness, right? Is that your higher self in the witness seat while you're actually doing, or in this case, me, while I'm actually doing the talking? Is this my ego doing the talking? Who is this individual, this awareness of consciousness over here? Some people call that the subconscious, some people call it the higher self. I'm not so sure they're separate. I understand why we want to break them apart, because some things are done kind of autonomously and some things automatically and some things with effort. But are they not all part of our essence? And doesn't even our body play a role in that consciousness? So my answer back to you, Chad, is I don't know. But when we talk about in QHHT, let's have a discussion with your higher self. Did you feel the answers that you were pulling them out? Or were they just coming to you as if as if we were just having a discussion?
It's funny you bring that up, because I mentioned this to you, I think. It felt like we were having a discussion, but I was talking about me in the third person, because I kept saying Chad doesn't know, Chad needs to this, Chad, like, and I'm like, and I remember saying to myself, why are you talking about Chad as if he's somebody else? So it was this really, I was conscious enough to be having those thoughts, but the words were coming from somewhere else.
Yeah.
which was really intriguing. It almost made me like snap out, or like, because it was so interesting, such a weird thing to have happen. Like, why am I talking about myself in the third person and don't have control of it?
Right. You're witnessing yourself having a discussion about yourself with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's a very interesting perspective. And one could say that's the beginning of dissolving that ego and subconscious line and becoming more whole in awareness. But that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah. So, Kirstin, I put Jamie on the spot. Do you have any questions, any thoughts you want to?
I don't really have any questions.
Ask about the hiney thing.
About the what?
Ask about the hiney thing again.
No. Honestly, the whole thing is just, it fascinates me, but also from some of the questions, it terrifies me a bit. Like, I want to know, like, what my past lives were, but at the same time, like, the questions of anyone that has scared you or like things like that, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to know that stuff, but at the same time, I'm no.
The curious mind.
Yeah.
But I think that's why people who really want to do these end up doing them, and it's part of learning about yourself and healing. And,
Well,
and I think that's important. You can obviously survive without finding out about your past lives, and I think we're only going to scratch us like a little bit unless you're doing multiple sessions. You're not going to learn about all your past lives. You're going to learn about what's important to you in this lifetime.
Well, and that's why there's a few things that like I have like something like pulls me to them or like draws me to them, which is kind of where I'm like, no, I want to like do a past life because I want to like kind of link things together. Like I've said before on the podcast, I constantly feel like this pull or this call to go up to Salem, and I'm like, I'm very interested to see if I were to do a past life regression, if something would come up that would understand why I'm having that like pull towards it.
Very well could be.
Yeah.
Very well could be.
That takes me to a question too, and bear with me on this because I'm not sure if this makes sense or not. But in your experience with individuals who are having a regression, are they gender familiar to who they are now, or does that change?
It
Are guys always guys, girls always girls, whatnot? Whatever your self-identification is.
Really, really good question. No, it changes. I remember this one man, he was, proud to be a dude. And he was like, wait, I'm in a skirt? What am I doing? I talk him off the ledge. I'm like, well, it could be a kilt. Let's not freak out here yet. But yeah, it does surprise some people that they, and your question's a good one because not only does it surprise them that they have been a different gender, but the experience of being in that gender is profound, especially for females who experience the freedom of body and where we go and who we have to look out for, that we don't even realize we're raised, with this hypervigilance. Once you're in a regression and you're in a male body, every female I've ever talked to has said, I felt so free. I just walked around. I didn't have to look behind me. I didn't have to worry who I parked beside. And this is so baked into our culture that we don't even think about it anymore.
And the pants had pockets too, right?
What's that?
And all their pants had pockets. So
that's a good point as well. Yeah, once the man got over being in a skirt, he was proud he was a warrior, so that made up for his skirt wearing ways. But yeah, some people are a little resistant to that for whatever reason. But more often than not, it's 50-50 whether someone will experience the same gender or not.
I was actually really expecting to experience a female gender life when we regressed.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I was surprised that it wasn't, but maybe next time.
Yeah, maybe next time.
So, something that I just thought of, and it's not an experience I had. It was actually two friends. We got into talking, and one of them did a past life regression, and he actually found out that our other friend, he's known in previous lives, and wasn't the most friendliest because he's like, yeah, we were at a cemetery and she shot me in the back of the head. I'm like, oh. But he's like, yeah, we've had a few past lives together. So I always thought that was interesting there was a linking of two people.
Well, I think Dolores has talked about that in several of her books. And there's even people who can't be in the same room as somebody because of past life experiences.
And it's like, why does this person rub me the wrong way? I don't really know them. I don't have anything against them. And it's like, what is it there? There's that friction, that some people feel with others.
It was interesting though, because they're the closest of friends. So it's like, you wouldn't think of that in a past life.
Well, it's healing karma.
True.
Yeah.
But also, Kirstin,
that's amazing how people have the gravity to come together
over
all of this and to find themselves over and over again. That's
wow. Just what I was going to say. It's like, Jamie, I feel like I knew you all my life. Wait, why do I feel like I've known him all my life? I just met this man, and like, where does that sense come from?
You're saying I should book a session this way, right?
We both need Jamie.
You bring that up.
I was hoping we were going to skip this one. Okay, cool.
Actually, a statement from Heather. I think Jamie unintentionally blocks his sensitivity using too much logic. I think Jamie is very open-minded, but needs to just let go. He really needs to do a session with her.
I want to do a session.
Thank you,
Jamie.
Heather.
Road trip. Let's go.
Now Heather's now working your marketing program. So,
she's hired.
So. Well, we are going on almost an hour and a half. Do you guys have any more questions? I have one wrap-up question I wanted to ask, but if you guys have some questions,
well, just let me throw some comments here quick, just to catch up to that. One of the things we do, because we usually talk about a place somewhere, a location or a physical thing. So the comment road trip keeps coming up, and it did here. So congratulations, Bert. And I think maybe the road trip is to you for a session.
Yeah.
In this case. Stefan has commented that he is very intrigued by this. And the next comment to follow is, given the supposed historical lineage of my family, it makes me wonder. And this was kind of going back into the area of gender transition between lives and so forth. And that it was in that window of the conversation. And Bert has said, I do believe people could be in multiple lives together. Heather and I both feel we have been together multiple times. And I have heard them say that out loud before, long before this moment. So that is really interesting. And another comment to there from Heather says, Bert and I have lived many lives together. We both knew each other. We both knew each other the moment we met in this life. I know we met in Ireland. The pull is so strong for us there, and I do travel there regularly. And Chad is haunted.
Chad is.
I'm not sure where that comes from, but
yeah, and I'm wondering if Chad's haunted. Does that mean that Heine is too?
Yes,
I'm
probably
wondering out loud. I've never caught up.
So we're talking about living lives together. One thing that keeps coming to my mind, and I don't know if I covered it in the synopsis I did, but I talked about an aunt that would come check on me when I was Heinrich and living on my own. Like, I didn't have a lot of people, but she would come check on me every now and then. It keeps coming to my mind that was my maternal grandmother in this life. like that she was that aunt in that life. And I don't, what's telling me that, I don't know, but it's just, it keeps coming to my, like, it's that's not my thought. That's something else. So I think it's
Right.
really cool.
And usually during a regression, and I can't recall if I did ask you, but often when we run into other people, oftentimes the client will say, I know this person. This is my son, or I know this is my grandmother from this life. It's like they instantaneously recognize them. If they don't, I'll typically ask, did you recognize anyone from your current life in there? So that's really interesting, Chad. That doesn't surprise me.
So, two things, along with the knowing people, like lives being linked together. I feel like that's how my husband and I are. Like when I first met him, I felt like I'd known him before. So, which is why now every time we're talking or something or goofing around, I'm like, you do know I'm going to find you in the next life. We're stuck with me. And he just laughs. And my husband does not believe in any of this stuff, but he just laughs about it. The other thing is, yeah, there's another person that I've had this feeling of like I know you before, and Chad and Jamie know him. It's Zach. He's one where I'm like, I've known you from somewhere, and I'm pretty sure it's probably from a past life. Which means I'm stuck with him now too.
You know, it's funny. I had this psychic medium tell me one time, oh my God, you've been with your husband for 400 years. Aren't you bored yet? And I thought, well, now that you mention it,
I think it's interesting.
Getting a little predictable.
I think it is interesting that we tend to travel in packs as spirits, and that we come back together to learn together. So I find that interesting. I find it refreshing that that we have literal soulmates that we travel with. So I think
it is interesting. I had one client who she had this beautiful white horse, cream horse, gray horse if you're a horse person, and she's petting this gray horse, and she's like, I knew you were my husband. I knew my husband and I had a past life together. And she had this love for this gray horse so deep inside of her, it wasn't a doubt, and the trust to be able to carry her wherever she needed to go in this horse was visceral. So sometimes our past lives are with others in different forms that would surprise you.
Very cool. All right. Well, I have one final question before we move on, and sort of put you on the spot. If you could take everything that came through during my session, the light, the vibration, Heinrich, the grief, the healing ability, and the message to stop holding myself back, and boil it down to one thing that I should understand, what do you think that would be?
Allowance. We in the US or in Western culture have this sense that the more we do, the more we'll accomplish. But actually, in the spiritual world, the more we allow, the more we become aware. And so allow yourself to imagine, allow yourself to go off topic, off logic for a minute, allow yourself to just dream, and don't discount it as something that isn't valid, because your brain and your consciousness is doing that. Who's to say it's not valid? Allow.
Very cool. Wow. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. So while we think about that, I'm going to give you a moment to talk about what you do and how we can reach out to you, how people can catch up with you. As Jamie would call this, it's your time for your shameless plug. So I'm going to throw up a slide because I pulled some stuff together, but tell us everything that you want to share.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate that. I have two podcasts. One, the Mystical Mermaid Lounge podcast, is for spiritual seekers of all sorts, from witchcraft to Mormonism, from Druidry to Catholicism, you name it. So anybody that has a specific spiritual message that they would like to send, not, this is not recruiting. This is just explaining their experience. Is welcome to come on, talk to us. That's on all the major platforms. Past Lives Cafe is the other podcast in which many of the guests that I interview on that podcast have been my clients, but I also interview other folks that have had past life experiences or dreams or those types of things, or knowings, like you said, Kirstin. So that's also available on all the major platforms. I help people reconnect to themselves, whether it's through past lives, whether it's through earth, nature work. But one thing that facilitating so many past lives has shown me is that we have a common thread of alienation, anxiety, and just a general sense of not knowing what our higher purpose is. And almost every person I have talked with who wants a regression has one of these issues or all of them. And so I decided that if so many of us are feeling this way, then there's got to be a way to bring people home. And that's what I intend to do with my services, is to help them remember where they belong, what their purpose is, and give them a chance to reconnect. And we use Earth as guide to do that. And a shameless plug, my website information is up there, www.quantumjourneygo. Go get quantumjourney.com.
Very cool. And I'll put a plug out there for the Past Lives Cafe. I've been listening to it for a long time. I've really appreciated it. And I was a guest on your latest episode. So, we're sort of doing bookends on this one. So.
I know, Chad, you've recommended both these podcasts to me.
Mm-hmm. So, well, I highly recommend that everybody reach out and check things out. And, I can't thank you enough for coming on tonight and spending an hour and a half with us. I can't thank you enough for the regression that we did. It was amazing. It probably won't be my last. I think you need time in between to process and definitely need space, but I'm looking forward to finding out more in the future. So.
Yeah. And Kirstin, it's nothing to be scared of, honey. Seriously.
I still want to do it.
I like that. I'm scared to death. Let's sign me up.
Let's do it.
That's a terrible idea. When do we start?
Terrible idea. I'm in.
So, well, guys, do you have any final thoughts before we jump to our next little bit?
This has really been an interesting time with you, and thank you, for giving us all of this, tonight. It's amazing, and it's much more than I thought it would be. It really, and I didn't know what to expect, of course, but
yeah.
I read the transcript of the session, that Chad shared with us, and that's content, but it's not context.
Right.
This is the depth. And thanks for fielding all of our questions, and even from the guests that are joining us tonight. It's a lot of grace here. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bert has another quick question. Have you ever done a psychic?
Meaning regressed a psychic? Yes.
Ooh.
Very, very cool.
I bet. So.
Multi-layered synchronous lines, talking about earth ley lines and systems and intelligence, and how we all connect through kind of like one big web network. It's amazing when you have people that have that type of sight who can also put it into words so eloquently. Yeah.
It sounds like 3 more episodes.
It's like, Chad, here's what we do. Jamie and I go do a past life regression, and then we do a follow-up.
Yep. So.
Okay.
Write it down, Jamie.
So, all right. Well, again, I want to thank you, Desert Star. Thank you so much. Hang out in the green room for a little bit, and we will be back with you in a few minutes. So,
very good. Thank you.
Jamie, I'm going to hand this off to you.
All right. So things that we're doing soon, like as in next time, I did a trip this summer to, as I do most every summer, to Vermont. And in this case, we were in South Central, very near the between the towns of Bennington and Brattleboro. If anyone knows the state, that it's kind of a funnel that comes down and narrows at the bottom. But in the Bennington area, there's an area known as the Bennington Triangle. So I was aware where I was. I knew that I wanted to do this episode, so I spent some significant time in the area hiking through and so forth and doing some research. So I'm going to present that. It's my how I spent my summer vacation book report. I used to have to do back in the day. So I'm going to do that next week and hopefully shed some light on the area and some of the uniqueness that quantifies it as the Bennington Triangle.
What I did on my summer vacation.
Yep. All right. And then episodes after that, we will have a special episode on Lizzie Borden. So the things we know, the things we don't. I'm sure Kirstin's going to give us a lot there. So I'm looking forward to that one as well.
And the hauntings around the house.
And right, there is more than most know. The episode on September 15th is Chat again with Hyde and Shriek. That's Hyde, clever spelling. The Hauntings of Hyde Hall. And then I'll be back for Bacon's Castle on the 22nd down in Virginia. And I'm going to just say this one wrong to get it over with. House Flugehen?
Close enough.
Yeah, not close. It's wrong. So
it's German. Close enough.
Go ahead. Give it to us.
It's Fullingen. Yeah, Fullingen.
Okay. More to come on that one. And Chad will be back after that with the Copper King Mansion. And then something we talked about a long, long time ago, actually, in relation to a different episode, the Philadelphia State Hospital at Byberry down in northeast Philadelphia. Physical place that's still there today, actually, but it's got a dark and deep history. I'll take an episode on October 13th. And all of these fit perfectly into spooky season, right? Because we're there. Yep. Everything Halloween is in the stores now. It's the most wonderful time of the year.
I'm already getting groups to go to spooky places. And by spooky places, I mean haunts.
All right. I'm assuming your invitation's in the mail. Cool.
I mean, if you guys want to go, I can invite you.
What are friends for?
Yeah, why not?
All right. So the ways to find us, obviously you found us in this very live episode tonight, but with other respects, we have our team website at www.jott-nyx-paranormal.com. That's JOTT-NYX Paranormal. You can email us information on how you feel about our episodes or something you want us to cover or just anything. Honestly, we're all in at info@paranormal-lens.com. And all of our stuff, all the socials, including our site store, are all available on Linktree, which is linktr.ee/paranormal lens. And if you're interested in supporting the podcast, and we really greatly appreciate that, you can help us out with buymeacoffee.com/paranormal9 or hit the QR code that's on the screen now. We appreciate any support you're willing to offer us. And I think it wraps it up, right?
Yeah,
my gosh.
Yeah.
What a great episode, Chad. Thank you for going through this experience and for Desert Star for joining us. I mean, this was just enlightening. And I don't mean to be funny to say those phrase, but it really was fascinating episode.
It was a great experience. I really enjoyed it. So, and I would recommend it to anybody who's interested. So, well, let me wrap this up by saying, for me, this experience wasn't just about discovering a possible past life. It was about confronting grief, opening myself to connection, and learning to stop holding myself back. I want to thank Desert Star again for guiding me through the experience and sharing it with all of you tonight. And whatever you believe about QHHT, I hope tonight gave you something to think about. So until next time, stay alert, stay respectful, and stay curious. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.